Hello everyone, Vlad here. I hope you're enjoying Expedition number 10, Singularity in No Man's Sky. If you didn't catch on throughout, there are some hidden messages that are coming to us in different forms throughout the expedition, and I took some time to decipher what several of those are, and I'd like to share them with you. Hopefully that you find this intriguing. Let's figure out what these messages have to say. All right, everybody, let's dig into this. Thank you for joining me as we figure out some of the hidden messages throughout Expedition number 10, Singularity. And I want to start off today with the most blatant message that I was able to find, and then move into some of the other ones that you may have just kind of skimmed over as you went through. Hey, you may have skimmed over some of these, but this is the ones where I started realizing something's being told to us here, and it led me to keep an eye out for other things as I went along. So I am here on the expedition milestones. We are showing phase 1 currently, and let's talk about the expedition a little bit. It goes in a pattern, right? We visit a camp, and then we speak to a broken autophage. He gives us some plans. We create whatever construct he gives us the plans for. We visit the Atlas. The Atlas gives us an Atlas seed. And then we follow that pattern until later in phase 4, we introduce Nada from the space anomaly into our journey, and we start hearing about these things called echo seeds. We present her and Polo over at the anomaly with our creation as well, and then we start harboring these echo seeds with Nada over in the space anomaly. So that's the basic gist of this expedition so far. We do have a few of the milestones that are still kind of gibberish for us. We don't know what they are, so we'll figure those out once we have reached the capacity for our community milestone, and we'll be able to progress with the last part of phase 5 in the expedition. So let's talk about the things we can tell right now. There may be more revealed as we move into the last few milestones of phase 5, but I would like to draw attention to our milestone here, the very first one, and this is where we spoke with our first autophage, and we have this one where it says spoke with autophage 5765. Now 5765 may not seem like a weird name for a robot. It could be a serial number, what have you, but what I found is that 5765 is actually part of a ASCII code, which is used in computers more, I think, for coding for storage type things, which is then ciphered into things that we may see on screen. And that's what this one is 57 is a letter and 65 is also a letter. And if we translate that into the English alphabet, 5765 comes out to the word we. So 5765, the word we. Well, we doesn't do us very good, but let's go to phase 2, where we also speak with another autophage, and he has a weird name. It's 646F. So more code. This little pattern continues. We speak to autophage 6E6F74, and then in phase 4 we speak with 6E656564, and in phase 5 we speak with 796F75. So all these girls or men robots have some weird names, and they're telling us something, I believe. And let's translate these. We know the first word was we. Let me pull up what the rest of the translation is. So each one of these gives us a message, and it comes out to, we do not need you. Kind of blunt there. It says we do not need you. But we don't necessarily have context as to who that message is meant for. Is it meant for us? We're going around and creating these things. Do they not need us to do it? Or are they talking to somebody else? We may be able to get some context as we move forward, so let's just leave that where it is. We have one message that says, we do not need you. Before we move on to where I have found some other messages, I believe there's another message here on this optional milestone, which remains locked at the time being of me recording this, and it gives us code here down at the bottom, 67 6C 61 73 73. If we translate that, it comes out to the word class. Now, that is a single word. It doesn't really have any context at the moment. Perhaps we will get more of this message once this is unlocked, where we can see what it is fully. But there also may be a choice we have to make here between these optional milestones, and I believe that ties into the story and the fact that we have Atlas seeds and we have Echo seeds, and we only have one construct that we've created. So we may have to make a choice of which seed to use. But if you want more information on that, check out my previous video that talks about whether or not we may have to complete this expedition more than once to get all of the unlockable rewards. But we'll find that out as we move forward. Let's continue with our code and message voyage to see what else is out there. So one message so far: we do not need you, and then the word class here on this optional milestone. Now the next place I started to see some weird anomalies is with systems. Now this one here, Downey or Downey, however you want to pronounce it, is the first system we reach when we start the game in this expedition. Is where we kind of converge into the world, and where we start this expedition off. And this one, nothing out of the ordinary here. It says it was discovered by Hello Games 4 weeks ago. That is common for these expeditions because they come in, they curate all the content for it, they make sure everything is set. Maybe they delete things because they don't want them there for the expedition, so on and so forth. So this is where we started. However, the expedition tells us to move around the universe, and they send us to different rendezvous points. And each rendezvous point is in a new system, and this is the first rendezvous point. And this time, instead of saying discovered by Hello Games, it says it was discovered 4 weeks ago by 7765. So we've now got more of our ASCII code. And if we translate that into the English language, that comes out to the word we. Some of you may be thinking, didn't you just tell me 5765 translated into we? How does 7765 translate into we? One of these, I forget which one, it's either 57 or 77, but one of them, 77 translates into either a lowercase w or a capital W, and then 57 translates into the opposite. So they both, it's the capitalization is the difference between those two, but they still spell out the word we. And then this pattern continues. When we reach the second rendezvous point, we get another coded name for our discoverer, and then another coded name as we move into rendezvous point 3. Oh, and then another code when we get to rendezvous point 4. And then when we reach phase 5 and rendezvous point 5, we end up with this last word here. Now, I don't know if we're going to reach another rendezvous point, but I think we're done with rendezvous points this point, so far into the expedition. I don't think we'll be getting another one. So what do these codes tell us? And they make out the sentence that says, we will build our own. So 2 messages so far that are complete, and it says, we do not need you, we will build our own. Again, are they talking to us? Are they seeing our work somehow and rejecting it and saying, we don't want your help, we don't need you to investigate, we got this? Or are they talking to some other entity out there? Perhaps the Atlas. The Atlas is where we're going to present our construct each time we build a new part, and we're looking for some sort of confirmation of our progress, or did we create life type situation? And the only thing we're getting in response really are these Atlas seeds that we grow as we move along. So perhaps this entity is also speaking to the Atlas instead of us. Maybe they're telling the Atlas they don't need him. He's presented as the creator of the universe here in No Man's Sky. Maybe they're rejecting the Atlas. Let's continue with our messages. Maybe our story will grow. Maybe it will become more confusing. So that is all of the messaging I found here in the phases and also with our systems. But I believe there's a lot more messaging to show you. Let's go back to our expedition. One of the things we have to do each time we create a new part of the construct is go and present that to the Atlas, seen here with, this is here phase 5, visited the final Atlas station. But phase 1, we had to go and do the prayer, and then we had to do the second prayer. So we're bringing all this stuff to the Atlas for all these prayers. Now, one thing I like to do pretty much for every system I visit that I remember to do it with, I don't get carried away and start off on something else. I like to visit the space station because I like to be able to travel back if I realize I forgot something. So I was doing the same thing here in this expedition. Every time I visited a system with the Atlas, I did a pulse jump over to the space station. And if you're familiar with No Man's Sky, perhaps you've had the same encounter. When you're doing the pulse drive inside of No Man's Sky, you have the occasional random encounters that happen in space. And those can be other space traders and stuff. But in each one of these Atlas systems, I encountered a anomaly in space. And that anomaly was called the Fragment of New Atlantid. It's this big giant ball. It had a lot of pink glowy stuff coming out of it. I'm going to put it here, it is on the screen so you can see what it looked like yourself. But each one of these had a message to tell me. Before I get into the messages that this entity transmitted each time I encountered it, let's look past the message for a second and let's look at our own ship. So this, if you'll notice the little console behind our message, there's also coding on our console, and that console appeared with the same message every time I encountered this anomaly, but basically it says void prime, and it has a / and a lowercase n. And if you're looking at the coding and translating this from the ASCII to actual literal text, the -n would denote let's create a new line. So what this is probably telling us is saying void prime, create a new line. And I believe this ties into my previous theory where I mentioned maybe this entity is speaking to the Atlas. This message would make it seem like they are overriding the story of the Atlas or the directive of the Atlas, the prime directive, possibly, if you want to phrase it that way. So this seems like something maybe rejecting the Atlas. And then we have the actual messages that we get from this little entity that we encountered. The first one says, "We will never see home again." And then just for clarification, I don't know if I'm going in the right order for all of these. I don't know if this is the order that I actually encountered them in space, but we'll come back and put them all together in a logical order once we've revealed what each one says. But the first one that I have here up on the screen says, "We will never see home again." The next one says, "Life is never extending, the data remains, the will remains." Kind of cryptic, but it sounds more philosophical, like philosophical type thing. The next one says, "Autopilot locked, ... reaching destination in error being in capital letters, years." So it sounds like some sort of system has encountered an error. And then the next one says, "The whole world burned." And then the last one says, "Out of nothing, she will rebuild us." Now that sounds more prophetic than philosophical like we got in the other one. So I think if we put these back into some sort of logical order, we're telling the story of an entity on a journey similar to us as we move through space. So the autopilot locked possibly is the start of telling us something has gone terribly wrong. Then it says the whole world burned. They'll never see home again. They're realizing everything that they were trying to reach is gone. And then we get into the philosophical. Life is never extending. The data remains. The will remains. This is more of a, hey, I'm going to suck it up. I'm going to find a way to survive. And the last part is more prophecy that says, out of nothing, she will rebuild us. That's a sign of hope, most likely. So I think we're getting a message of our entity, whoever laid these plans around for the constructs. We're getting part of their story. They were on a journey. Something happened. Their whole world was destroyed. They're never going to see it again. They say not everything is gone. The data is still there. They still have the will to survive. And then lastly, out of nothing, she will rebuild us. That is a sign of hope that they will endure. So I think that's the message we're getting from these. You may read it differently. You can let me know down in the comments. All right, so those were random encounters in space inside of the Atlas systems that I encountered. Now let's go back to our expedition page, and let's go to phase 4. Now phase 4 is where we introduced Nada into our mix of things, where we were showing her the construct, and she sent us to do a few things. And one of those was to reach an ancient site on the planet, and it was kind of like a temple thing where, you know, we get present Viking effigies and things of that nature in the regular mode. But in this mode, we also encountered, you know, a message that we got when we interacted with this. And the first message had a couple of codes mixed in with it. I'll bring up the screenshots I took of those. The first one says, "What is the shell but a vessel of silicon, glass, or metal, a crystal, a planet?" And in between all of that, there's two little strings of code. The first one translates to the word hour, and the second one translates to the word own. So we're talking about a planet. Sounds like a planet of their own. And then the next one says, "They awaken from the void. They all awaken in response, in unison against deletion." And that has some codes embedded. There's 3 of them. The first one repeats from our first one. It says hour. And then the second one is part of a word. It says verge, V-E-R-G. And then the last code is the last part of the word. It says E-N-C-E. So own vergence. And then that paired with the message we get from, that is in our plain English, sounds like a reawakening, a convergence of everything coming back together. And I believe that ties into our story. What are we doing? We're going out, we're grabbing echo seeds, where they're taking them to Nada's little incubation chamber, where they can grow, where they can be communal and come together. And what do you do with an incubator? You're letting that seed gestate so that it can grow and hatch into something that isn't just pieces or parts, but a fully functional being of whatever it is, whether that be the chicken egg that you're incubating or these echo seeds that we're incubating. Anyway, that's the way I have interpreted it from what I have seen. You may think something different. We'll see how everything plays out. So those are the things that I have encountered, whether it be through the milestones, through the planetary systems, whether it be from random encounters in the Atlas systems, and from this visit to the special place that Nada sent us to. The last code that I took note of is actually in my inventory. And one of their expedition rewards is this Echo Collective. And this Echo Collective, it says, is conscious housing, a shifting vortex of Atlantidium, attuned to the growing collective will, housed inside Nada's prime terminal. Current sentience threshold 87%. So we're trying to get to tier 5 to complete this community goal. This one's telling us that we're at 87% of the sentience threshold. All right, and then it has a special message for us down at the bottom. It says, the grains oscillate in a pattern, repeating a strange message, 73, 78, and I'll let you read through the rest of it. But what does that translate into? It says, why are we here? Okay, so a lot of messaging. We've got a story of a being trying to reach his destination with a catastrophic issue, but with a prophecy that they will be made whole once again. What seems to be a rejection of the status quo, so to speak. We do not need you. We will build our own. They do not want help. They're, independent is what I'm trying to get at there. And so we have this whole story that's being told to us through all of these codes that you may have not picked up on or seen as we went through all of these things. So I think it just gives larger context to everything we're seeing so far. And there may be more to this story, more codes as we finalize the expedition. But that is the last little clue I have for you for the story. Perhaps you've encountered other ones, things that you can share with me so we can add to this story as a community. I'd love to see those and get some more of the backstory to this expedition and of this entity that we've kind of been chasing across the cosmos and trying to follow in its footsteps with creating our own construct from its blueprints. And anyway, tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts, what your interpretations are down in the comments. Again, I'd love to hear them. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest content from Vlad Administrator Gaming. And don't forget to join our Discord. You can get the link down in the description to Lucy and Vlad's Gaming Emporium, where we talk about all kinds of things, not just No Man's Sky. We talk about ESO, Fallout 76. I got Starfield coming up. So we got a lot of cool things going on where we can kind of be a community and share things with each other. And we'd love to have you there. So follow that link, join the Discord. We'd love to see you. And until next time, I'll see you amongst the cosmos.